My brother framed me for theft to get a promotion, so I set him up with a fake client that got him fired and publicly exposed. I'm a 27-year-old guy, and I've always been the other son, the backup. The one you call when Nathan's too busy doing something more important. Growing up, it was obvious he was the favorite. Nathan had this effortless charm, like he came out of the womb with a spotlight on him. Star athlete, straight white teeth, handshake like a politician. Teachers loved him. Coaches adored him. And my dad? Man, he looked at Nathan like he was the second coming of himself. I was the tech kid. Quiet. The one who fixed the router when it went down during Sunday football. The one who got thanks, bud, instead of I'm proud of you. I used to think maybe if I worked harder, they'd notice. So I did. Straight A's, perfect attendance. Landed a job at a pretty big firm straight out of college. Sales team. Cutthroat, but I liked it. Numbers didn't play favorites, they just told the truth. Then one day, Nathan shows up at the same company. Dad knew a guy, apparently. Suddenly, we were co-workers. Or more like, I became his shadow all over again. Nobody knew I'd been there for years. They just assumed we started together. He got a corner desk. I was still by the printer. He missed deadlines, shrugged them off with a laugh, and somehow got praised for delegating. And even then, I still tried to see the best in him. He was my brother. Family, right? But that illusion shattered real fast, because the same golden boy who used to blame me for breaking the TV remote when we were kids. He was about to do something 1,000 times worse, and this time, I wouldn't take the fall quietly. It all started with a rumor. Our department was expanding fast, and word spread that management was planning to promote one of the senior sales guys to a regional lead. Bigger clients, bigger bonuses, a shot at moving up the ladder. I'd been busting my ass for 3 years, closing deals, mentoring juniors, even staying late to fix client reports no one else wanted to touch. Nathan had been here barely a year. Still, his name kept coming up in meetings. People whispered things like, he's got presence or he knows how to work a room. Never mind the fact that he didn't even meet quota last quarter. Never mind the 2 clients I had to win back after he ghosted them for a golf weekend. No one cared. He had that smile, that polished, easy confidence. And then he started getting weird. Out of nowhere, Nathan was being overly friendly with me, asking about my biggest accounts. Hey, what's your pitch for Thompson Holdings again? Mind if I use a version of it? He'd ask with this half smile like we were some kind of dream team. He even started grabbing lunch for me, offering to lighten my load. I didn't see it then, but looking back, every move was calculated. He was mapping me, learning my systems, my clients, my habits. At the time, I told myself he'd changed. Maybe he really wanted to be closer. Maybe we'd finally be the kind of brothers who had each other's backs instead of competing. For scraps of attention, the promotion announcement was just a week away. Thought I was finally getting ahead. I didn't realize I was walking straight into a setup. And Nathan? He was already pulling the strings. It was a Tuesday morning when the rug got pulled out from under me. I walked into the office like any other day, coffee in one hand, headset in the other, prepping for a client call, when I got an email from HR. Please report to conference room B at 9:15 a.m. regarding a compliance concern. Short, cold, no context. My heart skipped, but I told myself it had to be a mistake. Probably just routine. It wasn't. Inside the room, I found our HR rep, the compliance officer, and my manager all seated with stiff expressions. The vibe was icy, like they were already convinced I was guilty of something. They slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed emails, supposedly sent from me to a few key clients. They claimed I'd tried to reroute them to an outside firm for a kickback. Another page showed commission logs, altered to make it look like I was inflating sales numbers. The timestamps, the formatting, they were just close enough to look real. I sat there numb, flipping pages, knowing none of it was mine. I didn't send these, I said, voice barely steady. This isn't even how I sign my emails, but they weren't listening. They had evidence. They said it was investigating. Until then, I was placed on immediate suspension. My key card was deactivated by noon. I walked out of that building with my box of stuff while everyone else avoided my eyes, like I had a disease. Nathan? He didn't even call. Didn't text. Just watched me from his office as I walked past. No sympathy. No confusion. Just that same smug expression he wore when he got away with stealing my Halloween candy in 2006. 2 days later, the company announced he'd been promoted, and that's when I knew. He didn't just let me fall, he pushed. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe someone else had framed me. Maybe Nathan just got lucky with the timing. I wanted so badly to believe he wasn't capable of something that calculated. Even after everything, the favoritism, the backhanded compliments, the way he always seemed to come out clean while I took the blame. I still didn't want to believe my own brother could do this to me. But the universe doesn't care about your hopes. It deals in facts, and the fact was, Nathan bragged about it. I wasn't even trying to catch him. I just needed a drink. I went to this rooftop bar downtown where some of our coworkers hung out. I was sitting at the far end, hoodie up, cap low. That's when I heard his voice, Nathan, loud and half drunk, holding court at a corner table with 2 junior reps. Manipulating client logs isn't even that hard, he said, laughing. It doesn't check metadata unless someone snitches. Besides, they're so focused on phishing scams, I could have sent them an invoice with a crayon and they'd still believe it. One of the reps asked something, and Nathan lowered his voice, but I caught it. All I did was make sure the right people saw the wrong numbers. Can't feel bad. He was in the way. He didn't say my name. He didn't have to. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and hit record. The audio wasn't perfect, but it was enough. Enough for me. But I knew HR wouldn't touch it. It was off the clock, off the record. Legally, it was hearsay, but morally, it was a nuclear bomb. He didn't just frame me, he enjoyed it, and I wasn't going to let him get away with that. Not this time. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the dark with my laptop open, replaying the recording on a loop, staring at the ceiling between each time. His voice, his smugness, it wasn't just betrayal. It was something colder, calculated. Like I was never his brother at all, just an obstacle to step over on his way up the ladder. And I knew right then, I wasn't going to HR, I wasn't going to beg for my job back. I wasn't even going to call him out. I was going to ruin him, quietly, completely. So I called Maya. Maya and I went to college together. She runs a boutique PR agency now and owes me big. Back in school, I helped her win a lawsuit against a professor who tried to blackmail her into silence. When she picked up the call and I told her everything, she just said, "You want public humiliation or professional destruction?" "Both," I replied. We started building the plan that night. I'd create a fake identity, a high-profile overseas client that any hungry sales rep would drool over. Maya would help craft the backstory. LinkedIn profiles, press releases,
fake interviews,
a convincing corporate website. We picked Dubai, far enough to be exotic, rich enough to be believable, and hard to verify. The goal wasn't to scam the company. Just Nathan. We wanted him to bite so hard on the bait that he'd compromise everything in his desperation to prove he could close a massive international deal. He wanted a shortcut to success? We'd give him one, with a landmine at the end of it. The difference between him and me? I build things carefully, quietly, with patience, and I'd make sure the fall was from a very, very public height. The setup had to be perfect. We named the fake company Halawan Global Ventures, a sleek, oil-adjacent investment group with interests in tech, energy, and infrastructure. Maya crafted a website so polished you'd swear it had been online for a decade. She filled it with articles, fake interviews, and even recent partnerships with buzzword-heavy companies. I created the persona, Zaid Al-Rafi, a foreign-educated Emirati venture capitalist with a penchant for Western expansion. Zaid had style, swagger, and most importantly, money. I sent the first email directly to Nathan's inbox, using a custom domain. Subject line, urgent private expansion deal, discretion required. He responded within 10 minutes. From there, it was like dangling meat in front of a starving wolf. I dropped hints about a $4.2 million preliminary contract, mentioned I'd been scouting U.S. firms, and said I'd heard great things about Nathan's work. He ate it up. Forwarded my email to upper management, trying to look cool and collected, but I could tell he was spiraling. Every reply came faster, more eager, more careless. I requested a private Zoom call, voice only. I used an AI voice modulator and a filtered accent to pose as Zaid. The nerves almost killed me, but he didn't question a thing. He was too busy salivating over the numbers I was throwing around. "You seem very agile, Mr. Nathan," I said. "I like agile," he laughed. That's what they all say. The ego. The arrogance. He thought he was in control. I gave him a draft contract to look over. Filled it with vague legalese and a few intentional red flags. He didn't even blink. Said he'd have it signed and pushed through by end of week. He had no idea the clock had already started ticking, and when it hit 0, he'd be the one under investigation. I thought I'd covered my tracks. Burner email accounts. Masked IPs. A virtual private server hosted halfway across the world. Maya had even run penetration tests on the site to make sure it couldn't be traced back to me. We were careful, paranoid even. But no plan survives the real world without a few cracks. I was making lunch when my phone buzzed. An email from the company's internal IT team. Please respond to a security review request regarding unusual domain activity tied to external communications. My heart stopped. I opened the email. Apparently, one of their spam filters had flagged the Halloween domain after a series of redirects. That, combined with Nathan forwarding it around like a trophy, triggered compliance protocols. They weren't contacting me because I was a suspect. They were contacting me because, technically, I'd been the last one with access to certain client profile templates that bore resemblance to Halloween's proposal format. It wasn't a smoking gun, but it was close enough to singe me. That same afternoon, I was asked to hop on a clarifying call with IT and the legal liaison. I played dumb, claimed I hadn't seen any unusual domains, reiterated that I was suspended and had no access to internal servers. But then something unexpected happened. The legal rep said, "There's concern this may be an internal phishing attempt, possibly by someone trying to sabotage Nathan's new role." "You haven't heard anything, have you?" They didn't suspect me. They suspected him. Apparently, another senior associate had raised questions about Nathan's too-good-to-be-true deal. Legal was sniffing around, but in the wrong direction, for now. I hung up the call and sat in silence. The trap was working. But if I made one wrong move, I'd fall into it too. I didn't have to push anymore. Nathan took the bait and sprinted with it, like a man chasing his own myth. He started dropping exclusive deal hints in meetings. Whispered about international expansions, implied he was being courted by global investors. One coworker told me he printed out an email from Zaid al-Rafi and pinned it on his office wall like a damn trophy. It was almost insulting how little effort he put into vetting the client. He skipped due diligence protocols, circumvented standard compliance steps, even gave the fake company access to internal projections and strategic forecasts, all in a desperate move to impress Zaid. I kept feeding him. Another email. A request for a gesture of faith, something subtle, like early access to sales reports and client leads, to demonstrate commitment. Nathan complied. He didn't even consult legal. He was too busy prepping his presentation for the board. He'd told them this deal would be the firm's international debut. Promised a record-breaking quarter. Even scheduled a press release before the contract was signed. I watched it all unfold from a distance, like a chess match where your opponent plays blindfolded. Maya and I coordinated the next phase. She sent an anonymous tip to compliance through a masked proxy server. The email warned of a fabricated international, investor designed to compromise company IP. We attached screenshots, metadata, just enough to raise alarms, but not enough to trace back to me. And then we waited. 3 days later, internal auditors started poking around. Questions began circulating. Legal got involved. But Nathan didn't slow down, he sped up. Scheduled a live investor presentation. Planned to unveil the deal publicly before anyone could stop it. His ego had taken over, and by the time he realized he was running toward a cliff, he'd already jumped. The presentation was live-streamed. It was supposed to be Nathan's big moment. Quarterly investor call, full board attendance, clients tuning in, press invited. He stood up there in a tailored navy suit, radiating confidence like he'd just walked off the cover of Forbes. Behind him on a massive LED screen, the Halloween Global Ventures logo shimmered like gold. "Today," he said, "marks a transformational moment for this company." I watched from my apartment, laptop open, fists clenched. He walked them through the partnership, boasting about projected numbers, global reach, strategic alliances. He even had charts. Maya and I had made those charts. It was surreal, watching my lies become his truth. Then halfway through, the head of compliance stood up, live, on camera. Mr. Nathan, she said, interrupting his speech, we've just concluded a verification review of Halawan Global Ventures. This contract, she held up a folder, is a fabrication. Nathan froze, laughed nervously. Excuse me? She didn't flinch. The domain is registered to a proxy shell that leads to a deactivated entity. The contact numbers are non-functional. The legal address belongs to an abandoned property. This isn't a client. It's a setup. You could hear the silence, then the murmurs. He panicked, started blaming the intern. Claimed he had been spoofed, that it was corporate sabotage. He demanded they stop the live stream. Someone whispered, "It's already public." And just like that, it spiraled. Security was called. The board vacated. PR hit the panic button, but it was too late. The video clip of him being confronted went viral on Twitter within hours. Fake client scandal trended overnight. The golden boy had shattered, and all I did was hold up the mirror. He wasn't just fired, he was erased, publicly. Permanently and by his own hand, you'd think after all that. My family would finally see him for who he really was. But no. The night after the meltdown, I got a call from my mother. Not to ask how I was doing. Not to say she was sorry for ever doubting me. No, she called to scream at me. What did you do to your brother? She spat, like I'd pulled the trigger on his career with my own hands. He's devastated. He said someone framed him. That it's some kind of tech sabotage. And you always had issues with him. You need to fix this. I just stood there, phone pressed to my ear, heart numb. They weren't angry that he'd nearly cost a company millions. They were angry that he got caught. My father didn't even call. He sent a single text. I hope you're happy. Like this was about jealousy. Like I'd waited my whole life for revenge and not justice. I sent them the evidence, everything. The recordings, the timeline, the screenshots. I wanted them to understand that I wasn't just some bitter little brother trying to pull Nathan down. I was the one who had been betrayed, sabotaged, nearly ruined. No reply. Days passed. Then weeks. Eventually, I got a letter from my mother, handwritten. It said, "You'll always be part of this family, but you need to take accountability for the damage you've caused. We raised you better than this." That's when I knew. There was never going to be a moment where they took my side. I wasn't the son they defended. I was the one they tolerated, so I blocked their numbers, deleted old photos, packed what little sentiment I had left into a storage box and shoved it under my bed. I didn't cry, didn't rage. I just walked away, and I never looked back. It's funny how fast the world moves on. A month after Nathan's public implosion, his name vanished from the company's site. His LinkedIn quietly changed to consultant. Nobody mentioned him in meetings anymore. People stopped replying to his group chats. Just silence, like he'd never existed. Meanwhile, I was getting calls. Real ones. Apparently, someone at a rival firm had seen the live stream, connected the dots, and figured out I was the guy Nathan had stepped on to get promoted. One of their partners reached out, said they respected the way I'd handled the fallout, said there was a leadership position open, and they were looking for someone with both backbone and brains. I didn't hesitate. The new firm was better, smarter, and more honest. The first week I was there, my team lead pulled me aside and said, "I know what you've been through. Let's build something where people like you rise, not get pushed down." I wish I could say that healed everything, but healing isn't a switch. It's a slow, quiet process. Maya and I still talk. We laugh about it sometimes, how elaborate the whole thing became. She called it Netflix-level vengeance with Apple-level branding. Honestly, she's not wrong. I still have the Halawan site saved on a flash drive. Sometimes I open it and just stare at it. Not out of pride, out of reminder that I was pushed, undermined, forgotten, but I didn't stay down. I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I didn't throw a tantrum. I built something, carefully, strategically, and I let him walk right into it with his eyes wide shut. That's the thing about people like Nathan. They never expect the quiet one to strike back until it's already done. Sometimes, late at night, I still ask myself, was it worth it? Not the job. Not the new paycheck or the respect or the clean office with the city view. That stuff's nice, sure. But I'm talking about the cost. The silence from my parents. The finality of walking away from people who raised me, even if they never really saw me. There are days it still stings. But then I remember sitting in that HR office, watching them treat me like a criminal. I remember my mother defending Nathan with venom in her voice. I remember how he laughed, drunk and proud, about ruining my life, and in those moments, I feel no guilt. I didn't start this war. He did. I just refused to stay the casualty. People ask me if I'd ever rebuild the relationship with my family. If I'd ever sit across from my brother again, look him in the eye, and talk it out. I wouldn't. Because he never said sorry. He never asked what that suspension did to me. What it felt like to have your integrity questioned. Your career upended, your name whispered in office corridors like you were radioactive. He never even sent a message when I disappeared from the family group chat. Like I was nothing. So no, I don't regret it. Would I do it again? Absolutely. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't stay silent. I didn't take the hit. I didn't swallow the blame. I turned the mirror around and let him see what he really was, before the whole world did too. And maybe that's not revenge. Maybe that's just justice.